What if I told you that some of the foods that are quietly making your insulin resistance worse are actually the ones you thought were healthy? I'm talking about things like oat milk, smoothie bowls, even gluten-free crackers. They look clean, they sound healthy, but they can actually spike your insulin levels as much as a dessert. Now, this video is not about fear or food guilt. It's about showing you the hidden foods that are keeping your blood sugar stuck, your cravings alive, and your fat burning turned off. So if you feel like you're doing everything right, if you feel like you're eating healthy, but you're not getting the results you're after, if your insulin resistance isn't improving, this video is for you. I can almost guarantee that a lot of foods on this list will surprise you. I'm Kait, a nutritionist who specializes in insulin resistance and blood sugar control. I help clients get in control of their health again, so they reach their goals faster. And I do this with a food-first strategy. Now, this isn't about going on some restrictive diet. The foods we talk about in today's video, this doesn't mean you can never eat them again. What matters is what you do the majority of the time, and not the minority. Eating these foods occasionally, not the end of the world. That's not going to sabotage your results. But the reason I'm talking about these foods in today's video is because a lot of people choose them thinking they're healthy and that they're making a good choice. But they could actually be making insulin resistance worse. But let's get straight into it with food number one, gluten-free products. And this is one of the most misleading health trends out there. We're talking about gluten-free breads, wraps, crackers, muffins, all the stuff that shows up in the health food aisle and makes you feel like you're making a better choice. But here's the truth. Just because something is labeled as gluten-free doesn't mean it's good for your blood sugar and your insulin levels. Sometimes it can even be worse than the original food that contains gluten, when it comes to insulin and blood sugar at least. Most products that are gluten-free alternatives are made with high glycemic starches like tapioca flour, potato starch, and white rice flour. These ingredients may be gluten-free, but they're still fast digesting carbohydrates that spike your blood sugar quickly. And when your blood sugar spikes, insulin has to rise to bring it down. Now let's be clear, blood sugar and insulin spikes are not always bad. They're a natural part of eating and our metabolism. But when those spikes happen frequently, especially in someone who's already insulin resistant, they keep insulin levels chronically elevated. And that's where the problems start. More cravings, more fat storage, and more metabolic dysfunction. And this is why these products aren't ideal if you're actively trying to reverse insulin resistance. Yes, they don't have gluten, but they often have a whole bunch of other ingredients. Gluten-free doesn't automatically mean healthy. Number two is dried fruits. So we're talking things like dates, raisins, and dried cranberries. Now, these might seem like a healthy choice, but actually they're just sugar in disguise and a worse option than eating the fruit fresh. When fruit is dried, all the water is removed, which concentrates the sugar and removes the natural volume that helps keep portions in check. Now, dates aren't technically a dried fruit, but I included them in here. 2 dates has 30 grams of sugar, and yes, a little bit of fiber. Fiber can help to slow down the digestion of carbs and sugar and blunt blood sugar spikes, but I've run the tests. Despite being considered low GI, dates spike blood sugar. Yes, the more you eat, the bigger the spike's gonna be. And again, I'm not saying you can never eat dates again, but just know that they do contain a lot of sugar, and that sugar requires a lot of insulin to process, which isn't ideal if you're trying to reverse insulin resistance. And this isn't to say that fruit is bad, but when you're insulin resistant, concentrated forms of sugar like this work against your goals. You're giving your body a sugar hit without any of the balancing nutrients it needs to process it more gently. So if you're trying to improve insulin sensitivity, fresh fruit is better than dried. And I do have another video, which I'll link above, that goes over the best fruit you can eat for blood sugar and insulin levels. The top fruit that won't spike your blood sugar. Number three, smoothie bowls. At first glance, these might look healthy, but they're really not ideal for insulin resistance and blood sugar control. And here's why. Smoothie bowls often include at least 2, 3, maybe even more fruits, juice or plant milk, a banana or mango base, and then they get topped with more fruit, oats, and sweeteners. It's not uncommon for a smoothie bowl to contain 80, 90, even 100 grams of carbohydrates, with most of that being sugar. That kind of carb load, even from natural sources, leads to sharp blood sugar spikes followed by a surge in insulin. Do this day after day, and your insulin resistance is only going to get worse. So if your goal is to reverse insulin resistance, skip these. Again, whole fruit is going to be a better option. Now, if you are someone who absolutely loves smoothies, there are ways to make them more blood sugar and insulin friendly. Use low sugar fruit like berries, add a scoop of protein, add some healthy fats like a nut butter or chia seeds, and skip the juice base. All of this will help to reduce the sugar content, reduce the blood sugar spike and insulin needed, and help you to regain insulin sensitivity. Number 4 is chickpeas or hummus. Now this one surprises a lot of people. Hummus is generally considered to be a healthy food, but while chickpeas do contain some protein and fiber, they are mostly carbohydrates. 1 cup of chickpeas contains about 45 grams of carbohydrates. And even though it has fiber, that carb load is still enough to spike insulin in someone who's already insulin resistant. And the same goes for hummus, especially if you're using it as a dip with crackers or bread. Chickpeas and hummus are not a protein source. They are much higher in carbs than protein. So again, this doesn't mean that they're inherently bad, but it's just something to be mindful of. If you absolutely love hummus, you don't have to avoid it. Just be mindful of your portion sizes and pair it with low-carb veggies like cucumber or celery instead of bread. And also consider pairing it with some protein as well. Protein slows down the digestion of carbohydrates, which means less insulin is needed all at once. Number 5, rice cakes. Rice cakes have been a go-to diet snack for decades, but they're one of the worst foods for your blood sugar. They're made from puffed white rice, which is essentially pure starch. That means they digest super fast and spike insulin almost immediately. The glycemic index of rice cakes is actually higher than table sugar. And because they contain almost no protein, fat, or fiber, there's nothing to slow down digestion. So the spike is huge. Eating foods like this can lead to big swings in our blood sugar, both up and then down. And when your blood sugar comes crashing down like this, that's when you experience cravings, fatigue, headaches, all of which makes making healthy choices the rest of the day even more difficult. If you need a snack, go for something with staying power, like boiled egg, some full-fat Greek yogurt, or a small handful of nuts. These options won't send your blood sugar and your insulin through the roof. Number 6 is oat milk, and this one surprises a lot of people. Oat milk is everywhere now, in coffee, smoothies, cereals, and it's often seen as a healthy, dairy-free option. But for insulin resistance, it's one of the worst choices you can make. Even unsweetened oat milk spikes blood sugar in many people. That's because oats contain maltose, a type of sugar that hits the bloodstream quickly. Oat milk is also low in protein and fat, which means there's nothing to slow down that absorption. To make it worse, many brands have added oils, fillers, and gums. So you're getting a double whammy. Huge blood sugar spikes and inflammatory ingredients. If you're trying to reverse insulin resistance, switch back to full-fat dairy. If you can't tolerate dairy, then unsweetened almond milk or coconut milk is going to be a better bet. Number 7 is protein pasta. These pastas are often made with chickpeas, lentils, or quinoa. Protein pasta sounds great on the label, and sure, it might have more protein than regular pasta, but it's still pasta. 1 serving of lentil or chickpea pasta can have up to 45 grams of carbohydrates, which is still a lot for someone who's insulin resistant. And while it does have more fiber and nutrients than white pasta, it's not some miracle food. For many people, it still leads to a significant blood sugar and insulin spike. You shouldn't be looking to your pasta for protein. There are so many better protein sources out there. And something like spaghetti squash is a great lower carb alternative. And finally, number 8 is freshly squeezed juice. It's fresh, it's natural, it must be healthy, right? Well, not so fast. Even though it comes from fruit, freshly squeezed juice is still pure sugar without fiber. Your body digests it quickly, which causes a rapid blood sugar spike and insulin response. And when you're drinking the juice of fruits, 1 glass of orange juice requires 3, 4, sometimes even 5 oranges to make. That's around 30 to 35 grams of sugar. And unlike whole fruit, the fiber is broken down, so there's nothing to slow down digestion. And here's what makes juice even worse. Fructose, which is the main sugar in juice, gets processed by the liver. And when it's consumed in excess, it contributes to insulin resistance and fat storage, especially in the liver. This is the same mechanism behind non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is tightly linked to metabolic health. So once again, you're better off to eat the fruit whole. Now, on the topic of liver health, I do have another video I posted a few weeks ago on signs that your liver's struggling. So I'll link that video up above and you can check it out afterwards. Again, these foods aren't bad in an absolute sense. If you're metabolically healthy, if you're active, and you have good insulin sensitivity, you're going to be able to tolerate these foods better. But if your goal is to bring down high insulin, improve your blood sugar, and finally start losing that stubborn belly fat, these are foods you can swap out. Small changes you can stick to consistently are what add up over time and lead to lasting results. Now, I want to hear from you guys. How many of the foods on this list do you still include in your diet? Are you going to consider swapping some of them out? Let me know in the comments down below. And I know today we're obviously talking about foods to avoid, but I do have another video on the 8 best foods you should eat every day in order to improve your insulin sensitivity. So I'll link that video on the screen right now and you can check it out afterwards. But anyways, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.